Life is chaotic, and worrying about how to manage your money and investments for your future can be daunting. Someone who has made his life's work to help others navigate their financial path to the future they want is Darren Farwell of the Farwell Group, and he's back with us this morning. So good morning, Darren.
Good morning, Marilyn. There certainly has been no shortage of shocks and challenges lately, have there?
It's been very chaotic and worrisome, and people are biting their fingernails.
Yeah, well, with that in mind, my colleague Leslie, who's on the show from a woman's perspective quite regularly, well, we created a webinar called Shock Proofing Your Retirement Income. Because while there's a lot of shocks going on out there in our world and our society and our workplace, we certainly don't want those kind of shocks impacting our regular income that we count on. I mean, after all, widows and retirees depend on their income, and often a significant portion of their income, comes from their investments. It's this income that provides independence and freedom for their lifestyle today. So you can continue to do the things that you really enjoy most, as opposed to worrying about your income or worrying about your investments. But it must also provide the income to provide for your independence, dignity, and care well down the road for your whole life. And avoiding shocks to your income helps you protect both today and tomorrow. So our webinar, which is available to From a Woman's Perspective listeners at absolutely no cost, our webinar on shock-proofing your retirement income goes through 3 stages. Number 1, proper planning. Number 2, structuring your savings. And number 3, keeping your investments up with the times. Over the last few weeks, we've covered step 1, and today we're going to cover Barb's story that's going to report on how to keep your investments up with the times, how to keep them working for you no matter what kind of environment you're in. Shock-proofing your retirement income is a unique part of our proprietary personal roadmap process. Now, Sheila's retired, and she owned a small manufacturing company that she began to run herself after her husband died in 2005. They had previously run it together. Sheila worked with us using some of the tools from our certified transition specialist training after her husband passed away. And in time, on her time, she came to create her own version of her future. And together we created a plan. That's the step 1 in shock-proofing your income. When she sold her business in 2013, we set up her investments to provide the regular tax-efficient income she needed to support her travel, her hobbies, and the cottage she bought to share with her kids and grandkids. We structured her investments with an emergency fund, with 3 years' worth of regular income expenses set aside, and low-risk, easy-to-access investments that earn more than cash and GICs and are more tax-efficient, but still shock-proof. That's step 2. However, just as importantly as providing her income, her investments have to grow in order to ensure she doesn't run out of money down the road. Based on a number of different scenarios we ran for her, keeping her house, selling her house, and buying a condo, living in Toronto, moving out of Toronto, moving out into the country, full-time care at home. We ran lots of different scenarios for her, and what we found is overall, her portfolio really needed to return 4.25% average annual net of costs over time to ensure her savings would last well past age 95. That's a lot more than cash and GICs pay, so Sheila knew she couldn't just sit on her hands. So for the portion of her investments that were earmarked for growth, we kept an eye on where we are in the investment cycle. That is the cycle from one economic recession to the next peak to the next recession. Why? Because where you are in the investment cycle is the best measure of risk. From 2013 to 2017, we were early in the investment cycle, so her portfolio was balanced 60% in stocks and 40% in low-risk bonds. In 2018, the cycle, which started in 2009 in the United States, was getting longer than average, so the risk was higher. As a result, we changed Sheila's balance to 50% stocks and 50% low-risk bonds, reducing her risk. By the end of 2019, it was very, very late in the investment cycle. In fact, it had been going for 10 years, and the average investment cycle only lasts 7. Furthermore, the market had gone up a long way in 2019. So again, we reduced her risk and changed her balance so that only 35% was in stocks and 65% in low-risk bonds. Thus, Sheila avoided most of the impacts of the bear market that we saw in 2020 from February until March. As a result of keeping Sheila's investments up with the times, in line with current circumstances, her return since 2013, net of all costs, net of all deposits, is 5.75%. Well ahead of the 4.25% that she needs.
So now Sheila can sleep at night.
She can. When she looks back, she knows she's on track. She knows she's been on track. But as importantly, when she thinks forward, what are we going to do from here? Well, we're monitoring the investment cycle for Sheila. At some point, when things sort out and the economy gets better, we'll be able to adjust her portfolio to earn higher returns. Prudent long-term management has helped Sheila ensure her savings will provide for her independence, dignity, and lifestyle for the rest of her life.
Well, if someone's sitting there, it's important you know what you need and you make sure that you get it. And the way to do that, I believe, is to sit down with Darren Farwell and the Farwell Group and let him run those pictures. Picture this or picture that. And what happens if this happens and what happens if that happens. And the only way you can do that is by taking down this number. May I give it out, Darren?
Please do.
416-863-7501. That's 416-7501. And if you are at all anxious about your portfolio and you want a second opinion, it all starts by calling the expert, Darren Farwell, and having that conversation. And of course, you can ask for the webinar.
Right. I mentioned earlier we have the free webinar, which includes all 3 steps for shock-proofing your income. We'll be glad to send from a woman's perspective listeners an email copy if they want to email and request it or give us a call.
So thank you, Darren. It's always a pleasure to learn from you. Now, to help us combat weight gain naturally, Dr. Betty Rosendahl of Thornhill Naturopathic Clinic joins us. And then we'll hear happy stories from hearing instrument specialist Edmund Ivazian of Hearing Aid Source Centers of Toronto. And our very own Cupid matchmaker Linda Miller of Misty River Introductions will join us. I'm Marilyn Weston. You're definitely learning from a woman's perspective right here on Zoomer Radio.